representative of they are representative of a break from the traditional Aristotelian logic to modern uh, quantificational logic. He invented this quantification logic with which you all are aware, with which you all are familiar in your undergraduate and postgraduate courses. And he was the person who first systematized, axiomatized first order logic. The logic we all learn in our undergraduate days, these are first order predicate calculus invented by Frege. That is why it's called that Frege is often called the father of modern logic. And in the field of mathematics, I said he was a logician, mathematician, and a philosopher. In the field of philosophy of mathematics, he has special contribution in the field of logicism. He was an advocate, ardent advocate of logicism. What is logicism? Logicism, logicism is 1 minute. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. Logicism means he wanted to show that all mathematical truths are logical truths. In a more direct way, arithmetic is reducible to logic. So that is, it presented, in order to establish this logicism, he criticized rival positions in this field. Like in his early career, he objected vehemently against psychologism, which was prevalent, and formalism. I'll not go into that because that is not my topic of presentation today, but just to give you an overview. Now, coming to philosophy, the distinction which we will study today, this distinction, it comes within his theory of meaning, and it's a linguistic, in the field of linguistic philosophy, philosophy of language semantics. This is breaking. This distinction between sense and reference, this is groundbreaking, and we'll see how it breaks the ground. And he had profound influences on Russell and Whitehead, on Russell, Carnap, and Wittgenstein, the foremost analytical thinkers, foremost of our day, of the 20th century. So we can say it has often been argued that he is also the father of analytic philosophy. Now, regarding influence on Russell and Whitehead had a book which is a must read for all the logic students. That is Principia Mathematica, Principles of Mathematics. And there, in the preface of the book, he acknowledged the influence of Frege. He said whatever they had done in the book, it's all due to the inspiration from Frege. In fact, Wittgenstein, while he was a young student of aeronautical engineering, read this book and read the preface and went to Vienna to meet Frege. And Wittgenstein discussed about the mathematical problems, some problems in the field of philosophy of mathematics, and Frege advised him to go to Cambridge to read with Russell. Russell at that time was giving a course on philosophy of mathematics. So that was the beginning. In fact, Frege inspired Wittgenstein to come to philosophy. So we can see, and Carnap also in his autobiography had written a great deal about the influence of Frege on his philosophy. So we can say that he had a profound influence on contemporary thinkers. And he was little read in his lifetime. That we can find in Russell. In fact, uh, Russell had written that it had such a potential, but many people had not read Frege before Russell. And it's interesting to note that Russell found a paradox in Frege's thesis and wrote to Frege. Frege, when he received it, he was devastated. But in the appendix, in one of his book, in the appendix, he said that he's trying to address Russell's paradox. Now, he was, as I say, it's one of the founders of modern logic and crucial influencer of analytic philosophy. And major contributions. The first one is Begriffsschrift. It has been translated in English as concept script, and there he had offered this the quantificational movement, and the scope of this logic is much wider than that of the traditional Aristotelian logic. And this germ seeds of logicism is also there, and this basic laws of arithmetic and foundations of arithmetic, that was where he proposed his thesis. Now, he had contributed articles also, and these articles were also very important in understanding the development of analytic philosophy. Now, today we will study on sense and reference. We were Sinn und Bedeutung. That is very important. As I have said, I have narrated you earlier, and we'll see in the process that this paper is a must for every PG student, whether he will specialize in philosophy of language or not. I think it's mandatory for all PG students of philosophy all over the world. Now, why did he, as we can understand from the name of the article, sense and reference, so we can understand that he was going to make a distinction. He is going to make a distinction between something called sense with something called reference, and which has a huge contribution in theories of meaning, in philosophy of language. Apart from philosophy of language, it has got implications in mathematics, in logic, and in other fields also. Now, why did he want to make this distinction? This article begins with a puzzle of identity statements. But why is it? Now, we don't understand why he begins with a puzzle about identity statements. What was his motivation? In fact, during that time, during Frege's time, people were hesitant. People were hesitant to treat this sign of equality, the equality sign, that that is something which inspires, which says that the individuals which sit on on both sides of the sign, they are the same, they are identical. They have reservations. They are not ready to call equality sign as something that both sides are one and the same. They were not ready to do that. For an example, you can see 4 into 2, that is 8. is equal to 11 minus 3, that is also 8. But this equality sign, the mathematicians during that time, they said, no, this not indicate they are the same, because 4 into 2, it's a product. And 11 minus 3, that is a difference. So these two are not the same. This equality means kind of weaker kind. They are not one and the same. Only thing that there are some points where they converge. Others also regarded it that it's a weaker form of equality, like they are equal in numbers or equal in magnitude, but that does not constitute they are one and the same thing. Now, as we have learned before, that Frege was an ardent advocate of logicism. His main goal was to reduce the truth of mathematics to truths of logic. So he wanted to show that this equality sign, that in a sense, that definitely says in one sense the items which exist on both the sides of the sign, they are one and the same. He was interested in showing also that this equality in sign in mathematics and the ease in ordinary language, which we use in ordinary language, this ease of identity, they are the same. They are not different. It's not that equality means something in mathematics, equality means something in ordinary language. He wanted to show that no, they are the same. And how could he show it? Because there is this puzzle, there is this puzzle of identity statement. Now take two identity statements. Now, in the example, you can say one is Narendra Modi is identical with Narendra Modi. A table is identical with a table, and that is A is identical with A. That the object is identical with itself. A is identical with A. Form of the first identity statement is A is identical with A, and the second is Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of India. Now, this is not A is identical with A. Here we find this is the form of this second identity statement is A is identical with B. Now, these A is identical with A and A is identical with B, they are different. They are different from which perspective, from which point of view? They are different from the cognitive point of view. Their cognitive values are different. How are they different? The sentences of the form A is identical with A, these are a priori, analytic. We do not get any new information from such type of identity statements. So these are a priori statement. A priori means that you don't require experience for this type of knowledge. So etymologically prior to experience. And a posteriori, whereas the other portion is identical, other identity statement is identical with B, that is a posteriori. A posteriori means that it can only be known on the basis of experience. Now, there may be people who doesn't know that Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of India. That can be an information for someone. So we can see that these two identity statements, they have different cognitive values. One is a priori analytic, no new knowledge, and the second is a posteriori synthetic, and we get new information. We get new information, and that can be true or false. We can, in this is a true informative statement. So how can they be identical? Identity sign is the same. A is identical with A and A is identical with B. But the two statements that we derive by using the equality signs or the sign of identity, these two statements are different cognitively. They have different cognitive values. So how to analyze them? How to analyze these statements? One thing I want to talk to the students or audience, like if you feel at any point that you are not understanding what I am saying, then you can interrupt me. I'll explain. If you don't understand what I'm saying, but if you have something about the whole thing, then you can wait for the for when I finish. Now, so far what I have said, is that clear to you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Now, how to analyze, how to sort out this difficulty, how to dissolve this puzzle? Now, we have to find out first, what are the items which which sit on both sides of this sign? Are they objects or are they signs or names? Is identity a relation between objects, or is identity a relation between names? Now, objects, usually in the history of philosophy, we are used to take it casually as this relation of identity is an object has this relation to itself. So people used to think that it's mainly a relation between objects. But we have seen that if we take it as a relation between objects, uh, not objects, objects with itself, as a relation of an object with itself, then we'd not be able to solve the puzzle of identity statements. So it cannot distinguish between the difference of informative identity statements with a trivial analytic statement. If it is a relation between objects, then we really cannot distinguish. The puzzle will remain there. In fact, it has given rise to this paradox. So it cannot be the object. So will it names then? Here in Begriffsschrift, Frege argued against the view that that on the both sides of the sign, objects cannot, we cannot say it's a relation of an object with itself, because that would give rise to this puzzle. Now, is it a relation between names, between signs? In fact, Frege himself in Begriffsschrift subscribed to this view, that yes, it's not objects, it's only names. It's only names which are there. So names actually, it's not the objects. So A is identical with A, that is the same name, and A is identical with B, they are different names. So signs themselves, they have a relation. Now, later, when he's writing this article, later, 1892, there he is criticizing that view. He said, no, it cannot be names. If we take identity statements to speak merely about names, then the cognitive difference would not be apparent. Now, when I'm saying the Prime Minister of India, it's a different name, but are we interested in the equality of different names? Or we are in fact trying to talk about the identity of the referent of these two names? Do you want to show the difference of names? No, we want to show the difference. difference of names, but they are equal because the sign of equality is there. They somehow refer to the same object. So any sign can be used, and this could not convey the sort of knowledge. I can use the instead of the Prime Minister of India or the Narendra Modi, I can change names. I can change names. But if we change names, the main force of rejection of this view is that in these identity statements, we are not interested in the names, but only in the meaning or referent of the names. That these names can be applied to the referent of the names. So it's not about names, but the referent of the names. So we can see that there were no agreement. We could not subscribe to the view that identity relation holds between objects with itself, or it holds between names. But how can we solve the puzzle? Frege solves it by bringing in two layers of meaning. He bringing in another layer of meaning. He said that, look, A is equal to B, that is both informative and true. It gives us information that Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of India in 2024. Now, similarly, we can say Rabindranath is identical with Rabindranath, and Rabindranath is identical with the author of Gitanjali. Now, Rabindranath is identical with Rabindranath. That is A is identical with A. That is analytic, trivial, and we don't get any new information. But when you say Rabindranath is the author of Gitanjali, then we get new information, synthetic and new knowledge. These are informative and true. So how can we analyze or explain the difference? The difference we can show that the way the object is presented to us is different. Their mode of presentation is different. A certain object that may be presented in different ways. Now, Socrates, take for an example, Socrates. Socrates can be presented as the teacher of Plato, the founder of Western philosophy, the husband of Xantippe. All these things, there are different ways of representing one single individual in Western philosophy. So a certain object, a certain object may be presented in different ways. As we have presented Socrates in so many different ways. And Frege calls all these different modes of presentations as sense. So when I'm saying A is identical with A and A is identical with B, this is informative because the senses are different. Because the senses means the way it is presented to us. That may be different ways of, there may be different ways of presentation. And such differences in presentation explain the differences in cognitive value. So for Frege, meaning comes in two layers. One is reference, that is the object denoted by the name, the individual denoted by the sign. And second is sense, the mode of presentation of the referent, of the object. The object may be presented in various ways, and the ways they are presented, that he is trying to say the mode of presentation, that is sense. Now here, Frege is talking about three different things. First, the sign. Second, the object or the individual that the name picks up, that is the referent. And in addition to the object or the referent, Frege talks about the mode of presentation of this referent. Now, Rabindranath Tagore, it's a sign, name. It refers to a particular individual who got Nobel Prize first in Asia, and particular individual, but he may be presented to us in very many different ways. So all the ways he is presented to us, all these are senses of the sign of the name Rabindranath Tagore. Now, what is this mode of presentation? Frege gives an example like in a place, in a dense forest, there is a mountain, and there are people who approach the mountain from the northern side, and they give them a name. And northern side of the mountain is presented in such and such a manner, looks really snow-clad, very deep, dense forest, etc., etc. So people used to know only, and they give them a name, Afla. So seeing the mountain from the northern point of view, they have given the name, a particular name. Say you can give a name Uttara. And people didn't know about the southern side. So some other people, some other explorer discovered the other side of the mountain that has different characteristic features, and they gave a different name called say Dakshina. So the same mountain, explorers from the northern side, they call it Uttara, and explorers from the southern side, they call it Dakshina. So seeing the mountain from the northern side, from one perspective, from one viewpoint, from one mode of presentation, and seeing the same mountain from the southern side, from another perspective, another viewpoint, a different mode of presentation. So people might not know that Uttara and Dakshina are two sides of the same mountain. They know that there is this mountain, there is that mountain, but they didn't know that it's the two sides of the same mountain. So it is possible not to know about their identity. So here, two sides, Uttara and Dakshina, are two different ways of presenting the same mountain. So they are two different senses, but they are same in the way we can put equal sign in between them, because they refer to the same mountain. Here, Uttara is identical with Uttara, and Uttara is identical with Dakshina. These two, their referent is the same mountain, but their mode of presentation is different. Their senses are different. So we can solve our initial puzzle in this way, that they pick up the same mountain but present them in two different ways. That is why they can give new information. They can have two different senses but same referent. Similarly, so Frege is saying that there are two levels of meaning, sense and reference. That as if we go back to our original puzzle, that how can it be informative and true, whereas it should be analytic, a priori, and giving us no new information? Why? Because the senses are different. As he introduced this layer of meaning in the form of sense, he can explain the differences in their mode of presentation, which brings out a difference in cognitive value. So A is equal to B is different in cognitive value because the mode of presentation of A and B are different. And it is different in cognitive value from A is identical with A. And that is wholly possible. There is no problem in it. There is no paradox in it. He can easily solve this paradox by means of this distinction between sense and reference. So we can see we have three things. One, signs. Second, and it refers to an object, referent. Now, this object, referent, can be presented in different ways. And this presentation in different ways, that is called the sense. Now, if you go from the side of the sign, one sign that can have a corresponding sense and have a corresponding object as referent. It can be one-to-one correspondences. But if we start from the side of the object can have various modes of presentation that we have analyzed, that we have seen before. So object can be analyzed, can be described, can be presented in various ways. So there can be various senses. A sign can have various senses, but a single referent. And even a referent, a object might not be there. Like suppose an empty term which doesn't have any object corresponding to it, but it is meaningful because it has got senses. It can be presented sensibly. So that problem is also solved by this by this problem. Do you have any questions? Do you have any question regarding understanding this? Do you understand it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The regular connection between a sign, its sense, and its referent is of such a kind that to the sign there corresponds a definite sense, and that in turn a definite referent. While to a given referent, there it's not necessary that will come from a single sign. The same sense has different expressions in different languages. Like signs may be different also, even in the same language. So there may be differences in that way. Now, coming to the problem of empty terms. Now, in the article, Frege is saying that every grammatically well-formed expression representing a proper name always has a sense. But this is not to say that to the sense there also corresponds a referent. So if it is a grammatically well-formed expression, that is, it follows all the syntactical rules. It can have a sense, but that does not imply that it can have a referent. It might have a referent in the actual world, or it might not. But if it is a meaningful expression, then it must be then we can present it. It can be presented to us in a certain manner, but it has been presented to us in this manner does not mean that there is something in the world which corresponds to it. Say of mermaids. We understand what mermaids are, what Pegasus is, because in the fairy tales we all have we are acquainted with these things. These things are meaningful. Even you can have a replica of these things also. Like you have seen pictures of mermaids and Pegasus also in storybooks. And in Salzburg, there's a Pegasus sculpture also. So you can have, but that does not indicate that there'll be an object in the actual world which corresponds to this. So that empty terms have senses. As they have senses, because sense is also a layer of meaning. So they are meaningful, they are perfectly meaningful, but they have no referent. So if they do not have referent, that does not mean that they are meaningless. In fact, this is a big problem in the history of philosophy, right from the time of Parmenides. This is the problem of non-being. Like, if the thing is not there, how can we talk about it? The moment I talk about the word I use, that refers to a particular thing. So if I talk about a thing and say that it does not exist, then it will be a contradiction. Like, there is one X such that that X exists and that X does not exist. So there comes a contradiction. So he has solved this problem of non-being also by means of this introduction of sense. Now, you might think, now senses, are they uh, subjective? Are they like our mental images, that one thing, we all have different images of a single thing? Are they? He's very particularly saying senses are not ideas. Senses are not ideas in the sense images. Take it in that way, subjective images. He used the word idea, but he meant that this is something images. This is from the quotation from the article. The reference and the sense of a sign are to be distinguished from the associated idea. This constitutes an essential distinction between the idea and the sign's sense, which may be common property of many and therefore not a part of the mode of the individual mind. So you say sense is objective. A sign may have different senses, and various people can grasp these different senses. Senses are not private to any individual mind who is talking about the signs. Senses are objective. Senses are not individual images, individual ideas. One thing, Nimalo, how much time is left?
You have another half an hour almost.
Okay, okay. So I can continue till 12:30.
And then we can spend 10 minutes maybe for discussion.
Okay, okay. Or usually for others, 10 minutes before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Mm. You carry on. It's very nice, very lucid.
So the important thing is that this sense is not subjective. This is objective. This has got objectivity. So Frege, in fact, Frege gives an example. Usually in class, I draw something in a board, but you just imagine. He talks about the moon. Moon. The sign moon, the name moon, this is sign, and it refers to the object moon. In between, I'm an observer. I see the moon through a telescope. So in between, there is the moon, sign moon, and the referent moon, object moon, and in between, there is a telescope. And through the telescope, the moon is presented to the observers. Now, there is this in the glass of the telescope, the image of moon is reflected. Now this reflected on the glass of the telescope, that is something which can be shared by all observers. Now, while they're connecting to my retinal image, there I can have some particular image which is private. But the image reflected in the glass of the telescope, that is not private. So in that way, he has distinguished sense from ideas, from private ideas. So somebody observes the moon. Somebody observes the moon through a telescope. I compare the moon itself to the reference. It is the object of the observation, mediated by the real image projected by the object glass in the interior of the telescope. That is, in the interior of the telescope, the real image of the moon is projected. That is objective. But I am grasping it through my retinal image, by the retinal image of the observer. The former I compare to the sense. That is the real image which is projected on the glass of the telescope. And the latter is like the idea. The retinal image of the observer is private. That is associated image. The optical image in the telescope is indeed one-sided and dependent upon the standpoint of observation. My retinal image. If we see it from this side. But we have to admit that it is still objective. The image which is produced in the lens of the telescope, it can be used by several observers. But each observer would have his own retinal image. I don't know whether it is clear to you. Like, there is the sign. Sign refers to an outside object, that is referent. Now, this object can be represented through a medium. This medium is objective. But I can have my personal image about this objective medium. That is my idea. But the way it has been presented in the telescope, that is not subjective. That is objective. That is grasped by all the observers. So there is sense, but sense is not subjective. Sense is objective. So the reference of a proper name is the object itself, which we designate by using it. That name refers to an object. So this object is its referent. The idea which we have in that case is wholly subjective. I can have an idea of the object. I can, as I can have a retinal image of the moon. In between lies the sense. Object purely objective, idea purely subjective. In between lies the sense, which is indeed no longer subjective like the idea, but is yet not the object itself. The way object is objective, sense is not in that way objective, like spatiotemporality is not there, but it is not it is not subjective either. Now, there is one other thing, that this distinction between sense and reference, he has applied in mathematics also, and in other cases also. I'll just talk about a peculiarity of his analysis. As he was basically a mathematician, and he was trying to, his ultimate aim was to reduce arithmetic to logic. So he tried to analyze a sentence in the manner of mathematical function and argument.
Hmm.
Mathematical function and argument. You know what a function is? Like X is a philosopher. This is a function. This is incomplete because I have not said what X is. And I can give various names for X. Suppose I put Socrates in the place of X. Socrates is a philosopher. Then we get a truth value also. Then it's true. I can give Plato. Plato is a philosopher, and the truth value is true also. I can give Virat Kohli. I can give in the place of X. Then the truth value will come as, then the truth value will be, I don't know whether
Virat Kohli.
people, huh?
If I put Virat Kohli in the place of X, then the truth, and the outcome will be Virat Kohli.
Outcome will be
Virat Kohli. If I put
false, false. Like truth value will come as a result. So we can see that he treats the subject as an argument and predicate as a function. Function is incomplete, unsaturated, but argument is complete. And argument makes the function also complete expression. I'll not go into that. Only thing, this is necessary at this point to remember that subject expression is complete expression. And usually, grammatically, we call proper name a name of an individual, of a particular thing, anything. But Frege will say that a proper name is a complete expression. An expression which is complete in itself, that is proper name. That could be a genuine proper name or a sentence. So this will sound very weird, like for him, a sentence is also a proper name. A sentence is also a proper name. So all expressions, and now in this particular article, he has dealt with only proper names. So I'm not going to the function side or the predicate side. But if proper names have sense and reference, then we'll have to admit that sentences also have senses and reference. I don't know whether it was that clear to you, because I have not dealt with it lucidly. I didn't elucidate it. You just remember, you just think a proper name is a complete expression. A complete expression means it leaves nothing. It leaves nothing to be filled in. It is complete in itself. In a function, it is an argument. it completes the function. So a sentence for him is a name, however weird it sounds. For Frege, a sentence is a name because a sentence is a complete expression. So a name means a complete expression. We'll have to get rid of our earlier ideas about names or proper names. Proper name is a complete expression. So a sentence is a complete expression. In that way, a sentence is a proper name. Second step, if proper names have sense and reference, have these two layers of meaning. We were discussing so far about proper names and definite descriptions. If they have they can have senses and references, these two layers of meaning. So a sentence also should have senses and references. These two layers of meaning a sentence must have. Now, how can we judge? How can we find out? Huh?
Ma'am,
Huh?
just saying, Socrates
Tell
is a
me.
philosopher.
Huh?
This is a complete description and its own meaning.
Socrates is a philosopher. It is a
And
sentence.
is a philosopher. This is
Huh?
yes. And Socrates. This is a proper name, and Socrates has its own meaning.
Huh? Yes.
This
Yes.
is incomplete description and has not. But is a philosopher. This is not his own meaning, but just this is a function. That you are saying X is a philosopher. Is a philosopher. That is not. Matter incomplete. Though incomplete description, so this is not his own meaning. But when you are saying Socrates is a philosopher, this is a complete description and this is a makes sense. Socrates is a philosopher.
I didn't understand your question. Like
No,
Socrates is a philosopher.
I had no question. I just
you can tell me in Bangla also, if Nirmala permits.
Okay. না ম্যাম আমি জাস্ট বলছিলাম কি X is a philosopher. This is a truth function.
ট্রুথ ফাংশন বলিনি তো আমি কখনো, ব্যবহার করিনি তো কথাটা।
I think, can I intervene?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ অবশ্যই।
Yeah,
Yes.
I think there are many participants who can't follow Bengali, so it is better to use English.
Oh yes,
for their
definitely.
purpose, Yeah.
So I please try to formulate your question. Socrates is a philosopher. It is a complete expression. An expression which is complete in itself. It does not leave any parts outside to be filled in. So it is a proper name. Now, what question do you have? A blank is a philosopher,
No
X
question,
is
no
a
question.
philosopher, is a philosopher. These are incomplete expressions, unsaturated expressions. These are, he will say afterwards, these are predicate expressions which also will have sense and reference. But I'm not going into that here now. Well, tell me, what is your question?
He said he has no question.
Okay, then we don't have much time. I have two things to cover. Okay. So now we'll have to find out what are the senses of a sentence and reference of a sentence. Now, here we'll have to know about a principle. Probably you all are aware of this compositionality principle. Frege adhered to this principle throughout his discussion of sense and reference. What is this compositionality principle? Compositionality principle is that if we say the sense of an expression, of a whole expression, say a sentence, it will be built out of the senses expressed by the parts of that whole sentence. Like if I say Socrates is a philosopher, then the sense of this proposition will be built out of the senses of its parts, like senses of Socrates, senses of philosopher. It will be Socrates is a philosopher will be sense of the whole sentence will be developed by the senses of its parts. Similarly, the reference of the whole sentence, Socrates is a philosopher, that will also be dependent on the references of their parts. This is, in short, in very crude form, the compositionality principle. And Frege was Frege adheres to it. Frege was a strong advocate of this in this discussion of sense and reference. We'll have to keep in mind. So whenever we'll try to find out what is the sense of a proposition, or the reference of a proposition, we will have to keep in mind that sense of a proposition is the result or the combination of the sense of its parts. So this is the compositionality principle. So the sense of a proposition is determined by the senses of its parts. We know the senses of the parts. Now we know how to go to the whole of the sentence. So first option Frege chooses is thought. Now, thought, first thing I'll have to say about thought is that thought is not as we think about the subjective thinking. It's not that. Now, how to grasp Frege's account of thought? It's like a kind of, say, a proposition. Suppose I'm saying that it is raining, बारिश हो रहा है, বৃষ্টি পড়ছে, and what is Sanskrit? So there are in the three languages, we express the same thing. The meaning of these three sentences is the same. That is called by some philosophers as proposition. So the meaning is objective. So I'm asking you to think of thought in that sense, in that proposition sense, not as private mental images, not that way of thinking. So it's thought as something which is objective, which is public. Now, we know about, suppose Socrates is wise. We know the sense of Socrates. Socrates might be presented to us in very many different ways. And wise also, we know its meaning, and wise also can be presented in very many different ways to us. So we know the senses of Socrates and is wise. Now, Socrates, I can replace Socrates by the husband of Xantippe. The husband of Xantippe, I can replace Socrates by the phrase the husband of Xantippe. These terms which we can swap, these terms are called co-referring terms. Co-referring terms means they are different, but they refer to the same thing. And if they refer to the same thing, I can replace one by the other. And I can replace one by the other. There is this principle of substitutability. It's Leibniz's principle. You must be knowing about it, that it's substitutable salva veritat. That is, I can replace one co-referring term with other that will not harm the truth value. The truth value will remain the same. So Socrates is wise. I can change it by the husband of Xantippe is wise. And I have not used the main example that Frege uses. The morning star is morning star and the morning star is the evening star. So here also Venus rises in the east, and then again I can swap or refer to it by another term, the morning star. Now we'll see that if we can change Socrates, if we change Socrates by the husband of Xantippe, then what changes? The reference does not change. That we have known from its parts, that co-referring terms are co-referring terms because they refer to one and the same object. So here, what changes is the thought changes. So thought cannot be the reference, because reference does not change. Thought changes, but reference does not change. So what can change? The sense can change. So thought is the sense of the sentence. It might seem difficult to you. I'll try again. One thing we'll have to keep in mind is that Frege believes in the compositionality principle, that the sense of the sentence will be determined by the sense of its parts. So when we use co-referring terms, we know that senses are different, but not its referent. Otherwise, they would not be co-referring terms. So what can change? Only the sense can change. Reference cannot change. Now, when we replace Socrates by the husband of Xantippe, then what changes? If we place the husband of Xantippe in place of Socrates, what changes? It's not the individual. Who is Socrates, who is named Socrates, and the husband of Xantippe? What changes? The meaning of the word changes, the sense changes. So thought changes. So thought can be the sense of the sentence. Thought cannot be the reference of the sentence, because the reference of the sentence is something which does not change. Referent is something which does not change. So with the same logic, the same strong logic, he shows in this article that thought is the sense of a sentence, of the whole sentence. Now coming to another word theory, that what is the reference of a declarative sentence. Now before that, we'll have to remember that here also he is using compositionality theory. So the reference of the whole sentence will be dependent on the reference of its parts. Now he is saying, which might sound weird first when you listen to it, that reference of a whole sentence is truth value. Truth value means it can be true or it can be false. Now, why is he saying that they have truth value as reference? Now take all the co-referring terms, like Socrates, the husband of Xantippe, the teacher of Plato, the founder of Western philosophy. All these are co-referring terms. They refer to a single individual. Now, if we swap If we change Socrates by the husband of Xantippe, or by the founder of Western philosophy, or by the teacher of Plato, so if you say Socrates is wise, the husband of Xantippe is wise, the teacher of Plato is wise, the founder of Western philosophy is wise, all these 4 sentences are true. They are true. All we can say about all these 4 sentences where we have used co-referring terms, they all are true. So what does not change is the truth value. So all co-referring terms, they have the same reference. Reference does not change. What changes is the sense. What stays the same in cases of sentences having co-referring terms? The truth value. Either they all are false or they all are true when we use co-referring terms. So we can say what is constant, what does not change is that the truth value does not change. The truth value of a declarative sentence always remains the same. Hence, by these principles, Frege is restricted. So it is the reference of a declarative sentence that is truth value. So in the whole of in this article of sense and reference, he has said what sense is, and he has introduced a new layer of meaning, that is the layer of sense. And he says that sense is not something purely subjective. Sense has got objectivity. It is not idea or image, it is objective. And he says that complete expressions are proper names, and incomplete expressions are predicates, and complete expression, a sentence is a complete expression, so a sentence is a name, proper name. A sentence has got its sense and reference, and we have seen that the sense of a declarative sentence is thought, and the reference of a declarative sentence is truth value. So I conclude.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Professor Sarkar, for such a very lucid yet detailed presentation of one of the seminal, papers of our time on analytic philosophy of language. So thank you very much. So now I, request our participants, if they have any questions or clarifications to seek for, please come forward and ask Professor Sarkar.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I have a question that are senses dependent on the nature of their corresponding signs, that is expressions of languages?
Give me an example.
Like whenever I'm talking about like the morning star, like you told that this particular phrase, the morning star, it can be changed within the framework of a particular language or in different languages. I mean, from English to French, Latin, or German. So whenever the sign itself, the linguistic sign is changing from one language to one language or within the framework of one particular language. So with that change, can senses also change?
Like if the signs only change, if you mean only the signs,
yes,
senses need not change.
Okay.
Senses need not change.
Okay. And another question is the compositionality principle of Frege. Can we see it as a precursor?
No, this is not, he sticks to it, but it is not his invention.
Okay, yes. But can we see, I mean, Frege's development, can we see it as a precursor or a direct influence on the picture theory of language by Ludwig Wittgenstein? As you told that Wittgenstein was a student of Frege. He borrowed many things from Frege.
I'll not use the word borrow.
Influenced by many thoughts of Frege.
Inspired. And he took this sense and reference distinction, but he differed from Frege also. Like, he did not believe in this sense and reference of declarative sentence. And he admitted the importance of this distinction, but again, in formalizing it, he is quite different from Frege. And in picture theory, how are you posing this compositionality? How are you applying this compositionality principle?
Regarding the references of a sentence, I mean, though Frege, I mean, in the later slide, you told that though Frege actually is saying that reference is truth value for a sentence, that is not that is a major difference with Wittgensteinian picture theory of language. I was thinking if Frege was talking about reference is also a particular object in the external world, if he said so in case of sentences.
Object is the referent. These are all on the linguistic level.
Okay.
So sign can have sense and reference.
Yes.
Object cannot have sense and reference. Signs can only have sense and reference.
Yes. But regarding sentences, can a sentence as its referent has a particular object in the external world instead of truth value? Like if I am giving...
good question, but he has difficulties.
Okay.
Suppose, what is the reference? Fundamental thing is reference should not change.
Yes.
Reference will be something that is constant.
Yes.
Now, finding out all these co-referring, when I'm supplying co-referring expressions for one single expression, I'm giving co-referring expressions, all refer to the same object.
Yes.
Otherwise, all their meanings and senses are different. So
Yes.
what is common? What is the thing that is constant? That can only be that they are all true, they are all false. That is the thing. And nothing else fits the bill. Like, very, very strong in logic in that way.
Yes. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, Professor Sarkar, there is a question from a participant. Ma'am, can you please explain again the compositionality notion?
Compositionality. The compositionality principle says that the sense of a whole sentence is determined by the senses of its parts. The reference of a whole sentence is determined by the references of its parts. This is compositionality principle.
Okay, any other question or clarification? There is a comment from one of our participants. Ma'am, can we criticize the concept of mermaid by Russell, as Russell will say the mermaid has no existence?
Who will say that mermaid has existence? I mean, spatiotemporal existence.
I mean, ma'am, I want to say that Frege will argue that it is meaningful, but Russell will say which words which are not existent, that is not meaningful at all. In this sense, I am saying that.
Russell will not say that it is not meaningful. It will say that it will not, if you analyze properly, the phrase will evaporate. But he will not say, look, the mermaid concept is used in a language, it is meaningful. And no philosopher is going to say that it is not meaningful. Not meaningful in the sense it doesn't refer to an object. If you believe in the theory, object constitutes the meaning, then it becomes meaningless. But Russell will not say that.
Okay, ma'am, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, thank you. Can I know about the students a bit, at least? Who are they and where are they from?
Well, some of them are from, I mean, Tamanna, who just asked you the question of mermaid, is from Bangladesh. She is doing a master's, right, Tamanna?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we have some students from Kolkata. We have some students from outside Kolkata as well. Most of them are either doing PhD or, thinking of planning to start their PhD program.
That's really good. But otherwise, when we teach online, it's like talking to the computer. So that is the difficulty.
No, no.
Not really, ma'am. Your lecture was so lucid, and thank you for your nice presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, is there any other question or clarification to ask? Okay, if not, then let me again express my sincere thanks to Professor Sarkar for such a very, very nice, lucid presentation of one of the seminal papers in contemporary analytic philosophy. Because many people think that Frege's analytic philosophy of language really started with Frege's ideas. So thank you very much, Dr. Professor Sarkar.
Thank you. Thank you also for having
Okay.
this.
Yes.
Okay. So I can leave now?
Yes, yes, please.
Acha,
Yes.
how to leave?
I think there is a button somewhere at the bottom. Leave.
Acha, stop sharing. This
Has,
I'll
has,
click this
ha,
and then leave.
leave.
Yes.
Ha. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Priyambada. Thank you very much.